Okay, let's talk about emptiness. I can't guarantee something will come, but we should try. So we all think this is super real and that we're walking around in a body separate from the world and separate from others, and that it's all super real. And we constantly imagine ourselves as a body that's interacting with this world, that we're a somebody. And we kind of have this imagination and this sensation of who we are. We kind of imagine ourselves inside our head as somebody, and then we kind of have that energetic feeling, and that somebody is made up of lots of different things, whether it be high self-esteem, pride, injustice, all these different qualities are kind of sucked together and made somebody, and it makes it feel like somebody is looking out at this world and somebody is having an experience. But in actuality, there is nothing looking out of these eyes. There is nobody having an experience now. So that sounds like craziness, but maybe in 2017, maybe 15 years after I first heard this message, it's not so shocking to hear that nobody is sitting listening to this talk. Maybe that's a little bit more widely talked about. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, huh? How can there be nobody? Look at all these bodies in the room. Of course there's somebody. And I couldn't understand it at all. But it's not talking about the physicality of the body, it's talking about the experiencer. There is nobody experiencing this. It's looking through these machines, these instruments, so you could say there is a body here, but there isn't somebody, there isn't a separate entity experiencing this body. So that's quite intense. There isn't a separate entity experiencing this body. There is nothing experiencing all of this. Not a thing, not a found thing that's experiencing this. And that nothing isn't separate from the everything. That's super cool. You can't even really call it consciousness, although that is the number one quality it needs in order to have an experience is perception. It needs to have the ability to perceive. So you could say the perception is right there with the emptiness and the sense of being. So we've got emptiness, everything, perception and sense of being. They are always, always here and present. That's always here. What changes is form. Form comes and goes. You see? It comes and goes like that. That's my impression, the physical, artistic impression of form coming and going. See, I should be stood in an art gallery all day doing this. And this is the physical interpretation of things coming and going. You see, this is why all those dancers from the Middle East do this with their hands while belly dancing. That's the representation of everything coming and going. That's it, coming and going faster. I'm sorry, I'm hyper tonight. So, what doesn't come and go is this emptiness, this empty perception and the sense of being. That never comes and goes, that's always here. And there's always everything here, but that everything is changing form, so it makes it seem a little bit more confusing. So we've gone really deep, really quick, so I'll just step back. So you sit there and you think you're looking at me. You think that you're experiencing me. But if we took away thinking, if we took away the ability to think, who would be looking? Now, I'm not saying that the self just consists of thinking. It also consists of energies. So it's like when you get angry, you feel an energy in the body. And it's the same with the sense of self. That illusion creates an energy in the body, making it feel like there is a solid self inside here and making it feel like your limitation is here. But it's actually not real, and it's shocking that your actual sense of self, who you truly are, is actually everywhere and not separated from anything. And that fake energy that made it feel like you're bound inside the body isn't real and isn't true at all. So when I was having my awakenings, I mean, I could never at first define what was happening, but it kind of was like everything would go empty and then the border would stop. But then eventually one of the awakenings was so big, it felt like my sense of self went into everything until it disappeared. And then the whole border of inside and outside disappeared. But don't even try to imagine that, because your imagining that will be about seeking for the future. Just let these words go into you and dissolve and not mean anything. All suffering comes from this imagination of self, because this imagination of self is greedy. It's always seeking for pleasure. It perceives pleasure, so it sees the nice sensation of drinking. So it perceives a pleasure, and then it wants to keep repeating that pleasure and avoiding the pain. So it builds up this whole identity that's based around avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. Now obviously the body, so like Khaleesi's body, she's not identified, is going to have that tendency to seek towards pleasure, because that's how we're set up. We seek to go towards the sunlight, we seek towards food, we move towards food. Sorry, not seek. We move towards sunlight, we move towards food. But she doesn't have this separate entity that's watching it and constantly forming a fake entity, trying to always be in a position of pleasure. And that position of pleasure can get so complicated. So it's like the separate self might feel powerless in certain situations, so it builds up this whole identity to not feel powerless in that situation. It might fear going somewhere, so it builds up a whole identity to not experience that fear. And then the attempt to maintain that identity is exhausting, and you can't see it, because it's like a programming, an unconscious programming that's gone into the body. And the instrument of the person kind of goes crazy because it can't find rest. And this takes time to build. So as a child, when it begins, it's not that strong. And then it takes time to build. And it's not always in a state of being someone. There's moments where you totally forget yourself. But the person is only aware of itself. And it builds. And it kind of gets more crazy because it gets anxious about having to always maintain its identity. It decides situations that it likes or doesn't like, and it's always trying to avoid them or get to them. It kind of gets itself into this pickle. And then it creates all these thoughts and thinking of worry, anxiety, shame. And it's not necessarily getting rid of feelings, like can be sadness, there can be embarrassment, there can be shyness, all these things. It's not about getting rid of them. It's this end of this energy that's trying to maintain an identity to always be in pleasure. And it's so unconscious, the game, so unconscious. It's always in a lie. The separate person is always in a state of lying. This is why I hammer on about honesty and truth. It's like you come back so much complete center, and so everything's just spontaneously coming from the divine, and it's not this whole manipulation in order to fulfill a greedy monster. It seeks for pleasure, it moves towards pleasure, the body mind, but it's not like this separate person is so greedy, such rage and hatred if it doesn't get what it wants. How does the sense of being differ from the sense of being a person? It's love. Your essence is love. The sense of being a person is always got the tiniest seed that there's something wrong. Whereas the sense of being is just totally content in itself. It's so empty of all that, or so full, it doesn't need anything. Yet the body moves to do something. And it's nobody's. It's so intimate. The thoughts, the feelings, the actions, the outside world aren't perceived by someone. There's only perception happening. So there's no sort of separation from them or distance from them. But Julia, it's so hard to talk about. It's like, yeah. Like trying to get that in words is really complicated. Oh. While walking by a river a couple of months ago, the emptiness was seen. Once the emptiness was seen, this became apparent at last. Wonderful. So emptiness is a great topic here. Rock on. Yeah. And I kind of forget that it's not seen. So, I don't give these things that much attention because I always am talking, assuming that you guys know what I mean, even though I'm not even assuming you know what I mean. I suppose it's just I project, you are me, so therefore I must probably speak at a really not complicated level, but yeah. I just feel like I say it and then everybody knows. So I don't give things that much attention, like different subjects. But it's the most best favourite subject. It was always emptiness that I was attracted to. Cool.